When did you first see Jesus?
When I was in that cult, I was about 10 years in with them, and it was the first time Jesus had ever appeared to me. I saw in this vision the leader and her co-leader in a boat with me, but then Jesus pulled up in his own boat and he pulled me into his boat with him, and I watched the cult leaders just kind of drift away. It was just me and Jesus in his boat together, but it was very terrifying and frightening for me because I didn't know the truth yet about that group. I didn't know I was in a cult. So what I believed back then was that I needed that leader and co-leader for me to be able to be good with God, to even have a relationship with God. I needed them. So seeing them drift away really scared me. I didn't know what to think, and I didn't even know what that meant. That was the first time I had ever seen Jesus face to face though, and no words were spoken at that time. Now, today, looking back on that, I can see how he was showing me I didn't need them in order to be with him.
Did you see Jesus again after that?
Yeah, the second time I saw Jesus was about a year after that boat incident. Here's the background information just to give you an idea of where I was mentally and emotionally at this point in time. The leader of this cult had a really bad habit. I mean, she believed she was doing a service of God by telling everybody in the group what their faults and weaknesses were and the things that she saw in us that were kind of keeping us separated from God. So she would go around the group and tell us what was wrong with our walk with God, essentially, and that we had better work on these things or else God himself might have to step in, and that would definitely not be good for any of us. So as you can imagine, my whole life was, I loved God. I wanted to be pleasing to him. I wanted to serve him. But I was always so full of fear that I wasn't measuring up or pleasing God. It caused a lot of fear, depression, anxiety within me. And this was happening pretty much on a weekly basis. I mean, it would be nothing for me to get a phone call telling me I was full of pride that day, or I was being too vain. I was totally living in a pit of fear. And it happened to be during one of these really dark moments that I was feeling I'm just not good enough that Jesus appeared to me a second time. And in this experience, I saw myself as this small little rock on a dirt road. I had no feet, I had no arms, I didn't have any extremities because I was literally a rock. And I remember being on that dirt road and just this overwhelming feeling of wanting to be clean. I just wanted to be clean, but I was this one tiny little pebble on this whole huge dirt road, and there was no way for me to get clean. And suddenly I saw this huge sandal step in front of me, and I knew it was Jesus's foot instantly. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew it was Jesus. And he picked me up in his hand and he brought me up to his face and he blew on me. And I became this beautiful, white, shiny pebble, but he placed me back on the road. And I just remember feeling like, don't put me back down. Please don't put me back down. I don't want to go back to that dirt road. But he placed me down. And in that moment, all I really wanted was to just be carried by Jesus for the rest of my life. Put me in your pocket or something, anything. But he did, he put me back down. But I do remember the feeling of being so happy that I was cleaned off. I remember the feeling of being clean. And in looking back on that experience now, I can see that Jesus was showing me there was nothing at all I could do to clean myself up or fix myself up. He was actually teaching me. I just wasn't aware of it at that time. I was believing so many lies about him that were fed to me by this cult leader and her co-leader. I just truly believed that I had to do more and more and more, and I had to be better and better and better, and I almost had to be perfect in order for Jesus to accept me. But what Jesus showed me in that vision was that just wasn't the case. And in fact, he showed me there was nothing, literally nothing I could do. Only he could make me clean.
Did you have any other experiences with Jesus?
I have. I've had a lot, actually. I was praying and turning more and more to God, but when I say things were going in a bad direction, it was with me in the cult. Because I was turning more and more to Jesus, I was doing less and less of what the leader wanted me to do, and that actually became a real problem. She was teaching me that I needed to, go to angels, that angels were my intercessor, and I had to get direction from them. And if I wasn't continually talking to these so-called angels, that I wouldn't be pleasing to Jesus. And so the problem was Jesus kept showing up. And he showed up many times over the course of those 4 years, and he really began teaching me and showing me what the truth was. And there actually is a podcast that I really want to share with you. It's called Matters of the Heart, because the heart matters. And Jesus had me record that podcast, and in it I share how Jesus came to me and he actually showed me my heart. It was black and charred with these super thick chains around it, not even a power tool. There's nothing on this earth that could have broken those chains. If you would have seen them, it looked like it was just not even possible. There was no human possibility to get those chains off of this blackened, charred, nasty, crusted over heart. And Jesus showed me that, and he showed me that that was my heart. And I was looking at this, and with his bare hands, Jesus ripped those chains in half. And unfortunately, my heart was still as crusty and charred as ever. It didn't get better, but the chains came off when he did that. But I also knew I had those other 2 experiences with Jesus, and I knew he wasn't going to leave me in this condition forever. There was a reason and a purpose for him showing me that. And I did weep for days and days after that experience with him. I did feel more free because I knew the chains were off of my heart, but I also knew my heart was in serious and desperate need. My heart was hardened, and I just knew I needed healing. And it would be 3 years after that vision that I would be completely set free from the cult. Jesus had me start water fasting. And when I mean water fasting, I mean a lot. It was a lot of fasting during this time. There were times where I remember him sitting at my dining room table with me, asking me to write, and he would reveal his truths to me during the writing process. I was actually learning from Jesus during the entire writing process. I honestly felt like his secretary, maybe a scribe. I don't know. I had also during this time been introduced to the Holy Spirit, and I did ask the Holy Spirit to enter into my heart and my life as well back then. And oftentimes I would see Jesus and the Holy Spirit together. They were both guiding these writings. This is how every book came to be. They were all written on pure water fast. There was nothing else I was drinking. There was no food involved. It was pure water fasting when Jesus would have me write these books. And this is why when you do look at the books from Christ for Kids Ministries, there's the inscription, inspired by God, written by Julie Chappis. These books were not my idea. I had no previous knowledge of any of the information that went into these books. I can't count how many times I've honestly seen Jesus in total, but all I know is every time I do, we get very busy writing books, podcasts, and even manuscripts like this one. I'm constantly learning, and I'm always reminded of how very deeply he loves me, but not just me, all of us. I have no words to describe the love I feel from Jesus, other than I've dedicated my entire life now to share the absolute truth about him and to share everything that he teaches me. And you will be happy to know, since that podcast, Matters of the Heart, Jesus has shown me my heart again, and I watched it go from being this crusted, charred, ugly thing to completely healed, pink, beating, full of life. He truly has done an amazing work in me, as did Swish. And you're probably wondering who's Swish. That's the nickname I gave to the Holy Spirit because whenever I do see him, he's always swishing around really fast, getting things done. But that's another story for another time. Thank you.